Welcome back to Viva Houston. Parents with college-age students may know all about the Freshman 15, the idea that many college students pack on 15 pounds during their first year at school. Well, our next guest is taking a different approach on that idea with the financial Freshman 15. Morgan Stanley Vice President Claudia Mollerup-Madsen is here to explain exactly what that is. A very interesting concept here. And yes, of course, getting a son or daughter into college is probably just a whirlwind process. I'm not there yet, but I can imagine all the little projects that got to get taken care of, even all the little bitty talks that needs to have taken place. Financial literacy is going to be one of those.
Absolutely. I mean, the number of students who are going off to college, maybe the parents didn't take enough time to educate them on the little things while they're in high school, and now suddenly they're adults and independent with access to credit. Pretty frightening. And you know, how do you stay involved as a parent? How do you get your child to pay attention to there could be some real mistakes that will follow them the rest of their lives. So staying active in their credit risk and their financial literacy is really important.
Yeah, because it's a whole new area for a student as well. I mean, they're going to be dealing with college, but you know, I'm trying to think back on high school. I didn't really know if I had an account. I think, you know, I was working and I, you know, had cash, and my parents would give me some cash, but I didn't have an account set up with a debit card, which, you know, is what a college student's going to need, and that's a whole area of learning right there, especially, you know, being fiscally responsible as well.
Right. And the thing is this, you know, you have to start with just the basics. Okay, let's start with just a budget, number one, right? Mm-hmm. What are the costs, what are the expected costs, and then add maybe an extra 20%, because you never know what there's always some sort of surprise.
Incidentals?
Yeah, that's right. I think most college students have those.
So, I mean, you know, okay, setting up, I guess what you're talking about is you know, setting up the budget, trying to stick to that, and then what does it go from there? I mean, we're talking also about things that when you come into credit cards, right, and whatnot.
Right. And really there is a good point here, because are you going to let your student have credit cards that they manage by themselves, or are you going to stay involved with their credit card debt? And you could take this in different areas. Number one, if you allow them to do it by themselves, how can you be sure that they're paying on time? Because where is your credit report being managed from, or how do they make a credit number for you? How well you pay, how much of your credit line are you using, are you maxing out, are you below, maybe sometimes not using enough can also be a negative.
What do you think? What kind of advice would you give a parent? Should they have their son or daughter with just their own credit card and the parent never gets to see the bill, or should the parent kind of be on like a, I don't know, co-signer or whatever you call a secondary person on the bill to at least check it out from time to time?
Well, I mean, you have an 18-year-old who has the option of letting you see their credit. I think that if you can be involved, I think that's the best way. Why? So that maybe you can find out what is their credit score. You can do it annually for free anyway, and then know the difference between what is a hard check and what's a soft check. The hard check is when someone is actually offering credit to your child, in which can be done in the case of maybe some loans for paying off school debt. Or a soft check is someone's just curious about what's going on in your child's credit history. So staying involved, I think, is got to be a priority for all the parents.
I would think the student wouldn't have too much of a problem with that. I mean, let mom and dad just make sure everything's going okay, maybe pay something if you were short that month. Younger adults, obviously, they're so much more advanced in technology than us older adults, I should say. So technology is also going to be an issue where they can maybe monitor their accounts. What do you recommend when we talk about apps and just paying bills online?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of, you know, today the young kids, they do everything online as it is. So yeah, an app, if they're one that's appropriate for them, or just a simple Excel file or something where they write down, take the time, their credit card, their debit cards, their bank accounts have that sort of information. And if you have access to seeing the account, which is great, then use that. Stay with them. Maybe not monitor to the point where you're controlling it, but more than anything, just sort of saying, I noticed that you spent something, you know, do you know where that money went? If they can tell you, yes, I had this and this and this expense, then you know they're staying responsible on it. But if they're kind of not very clear, then you're just sort of saying, well, just think about how you're spending your money, where is it going, because how are you going to make up for it next month?
Yeah, and the main theme, it seems like, you know, hearing from you as well, is just Try to always have a dialogue about how the accounts are going and how the money's going and the spending and whatnot. Just always make sure there's a little bit of a dialogue going there.
That's
so
right.
No one's caught by surprise.
That's right. You know, and they take on debt. You know, they could take on too much college debt, for example. You know, a lot of children, I mean, a large percentage, 80% of the population is always looking to try and reduce their costs. So one reason they'll take state universities over a public university. Well, okay, but then still we have to pay for it. Well, let's take a loan, shop around, get, you know, try and get a lower interest rate. And then knowing when you graduate from the university, that debt's going to go with you. What kind of history have you had on paying that on
Which
time?
can put a strain on somebody's life as soon as they graduate.
Exactly.
All right.
And guess what? They're back at home.
Yeah. Claudia, thanks a lot for all the tips. They really are good.
Thank you very much for having me.